Hi, it's Katie over at Health, Wellness, and Chocolate, and you are watching training video number 5, Creating Healthy Habits. In our previous video, we discussed creating strategies of what to do instead of eating, and I want to talk to you right now about creating those healthy habits and why you would want to and why it's important. Okay, so this big word, but it says neuroplasticity, and those are the connections that your brain makes. And what's really neat is neuroplasticity is a recently new discovery where they have found that your brain has these pathways that have been created over time by habit. And they have found that your brain can actually change based on you being able to change it. So there's that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, science has said, yeah, actually you can. It just takes time and it takes effort. So that's good news for us, because us feeling powerless to say, gosh, I've always just done this. This is always what I've done. I can't change. This habit is terrible, but I'm not going to change it. Well, my friends, welcome to neuroplasticity. You can change. You can be taught. And it's important for you to know about, because I want to give you hope and say, you know what, you can rewire your brain and train your brain to make healthier choices, but it is going to take intent, and it is going to take effort at first. So what we're going to try to do, or what we are going to do, is we are training our brains to disassociate our desire to eat to the emotions that we feel. Okay, and then we are retraining our brain to identify true hunger, noticing emotions, and dealing with them without food. Now, we were born with this ability, but over time, and because we are chronic dieters, we've lost touch with the ability to do that. Well, neuroplasticity is the ability to relearn that. And it's really neat. I had read a study on this, and they found that there was in England, in order to become a taxi driver, you have to take a rigorous test. And I think they had said it was probably the most rigorous test ever. And the men who actually successfully completed the test, they found that their brains actually grew in density and size because of the information that they had to memorize. It's really fascinating research. So your brain can grow and it can change if you choose to grow and change it, right? It takes this effort. So training our brains to make these new habits takes about 3 months, okay? So if you consider, sometimes you hear, 3 weeks, you can change everything in about 3 weeks, 21 days. That's true for initial change, but in order to really create a new neural pathway, it takes about 3 months. And so what one of the scientists had said was, when you start a new habit, you almost have like these daughter brain cells, and when you start to implement this new habit, these daughter brain cells start to get a little bit more mature, and then they start to build. And then they become more mature brain cells, and then they start to create these pathways. It takes about 3 months to create a new neural pathway. And it's almost like blazing a trail. Okay, so you can't just stop a habit, right? You need to replace that habit. Otherwise, you will just revert back, especially if times get tough. And what they found was most diets fail in a reaction to an emotional event. So typically people are doing well, but the diet will end usually after an emotional event. And that is why, so a diet would be a habit, right? A new habit. And you can't just start a diet without having something to do instead of the old habits. And that's why in our previous training video, I had you create those exercises or those activities to do instead of eating, because we're going to retrain your brain, right? So we're replacing old behaviors with new behaviors, and that's exactly the way you get your brain to change. New habits take work. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. If you can imagine, a new habit is like blazing a new trail, right? So if you're in the woods and you have a machete and you're standing there, and think of those woods as your new habit, you need to take that machete and just start chopping and walk and chop and walk and chop. And that's really hard work, and it's slow. And sometimes you feel like quitting, right? But you look back and you see, okay, there's a little trail here. I can keep going. And you go and you're making progress, right? Well, eventually and over time, those habits grow bigger. And an established habit is like a 4-lane superhighway. Now imagine just having to go down a 4-lane superhighway. It's super fast. It's super easy. You don't even need to think about it. So if you can associate a new habit as you're blazing a trail literally in the woods, and an established habit as being on a 4-lane superhighway. So think of something you've always had to do, or from when you first learned it, say driving. When you first learned how to drive, it took time, it took effort, it took concentration, but now, if you've driven for a long time, it's like second nature. You've trained your brain to know how to do it. It's like a 4-lane superhighway. You don't need to do that. So new habits take time, and they take work. They take effort. So I'm not going to let you think that changing, you're not dieting, but you definitely have work to do, because you need to establish these new habits. Right? And at first, sometimes our behaviors are easy to change because it's exciting. Your motivation is high because you really want to have this behavior change. But your motivation will start to go down over time, especially as life goes on and other events happen. New habits take time, and they're sometimes hard. And if we have been using food to cope, it's so much easier to go ahead and revert back to food, which is exactly why you must have a plan in place, so that you're not reverting right back to food when the motivation gets lower for you to be changing all these new healthier habits. Okay, and a lot of times you might say, well, this is hard and it's taking time. But food is really a quick reward. I love the way that tastes in my mouth, and that's what I really want right now. And food is immediately rewarding, and sometimes our goals are long off. And so we want the immediate gratification before we want those long off goals. And sometimes you even begin to rationalize, well, life wasn't so bad before. Okay, so I was a little overweight, but oh well, I was happy. I'm not happy now. Okay, this is why I want you to have your plan in place, because if you don't have that long-term goal in place and that long-term vision, it's so much easier to just give up, especially when we don't feel like it. When life gets hard, and it will, a well-life vision plan will help you. And again, go back to your journal and start writing down some of your goals. Why would you want to change your health? Why do you want to put all this effort into replacing all these older habits with new, healthier habits? What's in it for you? What do you hope to achieve? Write that all down, because there are going to be moments, I promise you, I can't tell you how many times I had to go back to my journal and read it again, especially in the dead of winter and the kids have the flu, and it's just so much easier to grab a hot cup of hot chocolate and, go back and read it. No, I have bigger goals. I can go do this, and this instead, and I know that'll support me in my health instead of going back. So that's where your well life vision comes into place. And it's just so important to have a vision for where you want to be. It's sometimes hard, but you definitely need to have something in place for yourself to say, okay, I have bigger goals than just eating these chips. I want to eat these chips, but I'm going to go do this instead. So consider what I said about neuroplasticity. You are not helpless to lose weight. You are not helpless to just go into the pantry and eat whatever you want. You are not obligated to react to every single desire to eat that you have. Get your plan in place. Refer back to it. You might get frustrated. The process isn't going to be overnight. It is going to take 3 months for you to create this new habit. And at first, it is going to take a lot of time. It is going to take effort. It is going to take your attention, but it is so worth it. And in our next video, we are going to talk about creating that well life vision. I'm going to walk you through it. So I hope you have a great day.